I was in mid-active bodybuilder AP when my husband walked in. This is how he reacted. I got to know about Reddit through some friends of mine who told me that this was a safe space to share your personal stories without any judgment. So here I am today to share something life-shattering that had happened to me recently. I have nobody to blame but myself for all the events that I would be mentioning below. Let me take a deep breath and tell you my story. My name is Samantha and I'm 47 years old. I have been married to David, who is 54 for the past 25 years. David had always been a loving and caring husband as long as I can remember. We had 3 kids who left home when they grew up, and now it's just the 2 of us living in our big old house. I had taken a break from my work to spend my time at home as my job was getting too toxic. David was into sales and made enough money for the both of us. He also had a business set up to come in handy when he retired. Our kids arranged a grand event for our 25th marriage anniversary. It was at one of our holiday homes where everybody near and dear had been invited. I could see a lot of familiar faces that had been in my life for as long as I could remember. As I was walking down greeting people, I heard someone comment that I was trying to be too young wearing that dress which did not suit someone of my age. I tried to see who it was, but it was too loud and crowded to make out who could have made such malicious comments. I decided to forget about it for now and enjoy the party. As the party progressed, I could not help but keep going back to those comments in my head. I suppressed my unease and focused on enjoying my time with my family. It was very rare for us to get together as all my kids stayed in different cities. It was 1 week since our wedding anniversary. I could still not shake those comments off my head. I was down in my spirits and not my usual self. David could sense that there was something wrong with me and asked if there was something he could do to make me feel better. I shared my concerns with David, who was furious about it. David, being the loving husband that he was, tried his best to cheer me up. He took me shopping so that I could divert my attention and stop thinking about any negative emotions that were ruining my happiness. He reminded me that I had always been a timeless beauty and nobody could take that away from me. He took me to a spa that could help me release the tension and calm my mind. I smiled at the effort that he put in, and I knew that I was lucky to have him as my husband. Even after a few weeks, I couldn't let go of those comments that kept haunting me. I shared my concerns with David and asked him to be very honest and tell me if I looked bad. David looked at me and said that I looked perfect, and I should not let these comments hit my confidence. I told him that it was difficult for me to move on from these comments and that I should do something about it. David told me that he was always there for me, and if there was something he could do, that I was always welcome to go up to him and talk to him about it. I started to Google about fitness and body shape and diet. I tried a diet for a few days, but I understood that it was not my cup of tea. I needed guidance and help to start my fitness journey. I told David that I would not be able to do this on my own, and I would need an expert. David said that he had something in mind, but wasn't sure if I would be up for that idea. He suggested that I check out a few gyms with personal trainers that not only focused on exercise but also on diet and would guide me to improve my health. He said that he knew my aversion towards going to the gym, but I could try it for a few weeks and see if it helps. At this point, I was willing to do anything to get out of this depressed state that I was in. I started scouting a few gyms and shortlisted a few places to visit and talk to the trainers. I knew exactly what I had in mind and what I was expecting my trainer to guide me with. After going over a few gyms, I finally shortlisted a gym. I came home all excited and broke the news to David that I finally found a trainer that I felt could help me in my journey. David was very excited to see my determination and motivation to hit the gym. The next day, I went to the gym and met my personal trainer. His name was Tony. He was tall, handsome, young, and obviously ripped. I could see that he had a lot of admirers in the entire gym. The girls would drool over his body and the boys tried hard to have a boy like him. He was quite popular and was aware of it. He told me that he would start off with light exercises and basics to begin with, and as we progressed, we could move to something on an intermediate level. I was happy that he had a plan in mind. As I was leaving, he handed me a diet chart that I had to follow to make myself fitter and healthier. I was very happy with my first gym session and was excited to tell David all about it. I went home and stuck the diet chart to my fridge to make sure that I followed it religiously. When David came home, I was all excited and started blabbering about my experience at the gym without taking a breath. He smiled and said that he was happy to see me, happy. It has been a week since I started going to the gym. David told me that he could see positive changes in my body. I was very happy to receive compliments from David, and I myself felt very good in my own skin. I was feeling confident and had this unknown drive that I could look good in anything that I wear. My gym sessions had now moved from 45 minutes to a full 1 hour. I was able to do a lot of things that were difficult in the beginning. My bond with Tony grew stronger as days passed. One day, Tony was teaching me a new exercise. That's when one of his fingers brushed my thighs. It sent shivers down my spine, and I felt an electrifying feeling that I could not shake off. He looked at me and smiled sheepishly at his innocent mistake. We both laughed about it and let it go. I did not make it into a big issue and decided not to tell David about this. I knew David wouldn't mind this, but somewhere it didn't feel right to tell David. The next day, I entered the gym as usual and saw Tony waiting for me. He told me that we would be doing a new exercise today and took me to a different area of the gym. As he was showing me the correct posture for the exercise, I could feel his hand on my buttock. I did not know if it was intentional or he was just trying to correct my posture. I was enjoying myself. I am not going to lie and wanted it to rest there for some time. I asked Tony if this was the right posture, to which he said that he would have to hold me to make sure I don't sprain myself. He was the expert here and would be the one deciding. I agreed to it and stood straight. He stood behind me a little too close for my comfort. I could feel his breath on my neck. He held my hand and made me hold the bar in front of me. He asked me to take a step and bend my thigh. I did that, but he said that my thigh was not aligned. He took his hand and held my thigh to align it correctly. His touch was doing something to me. As he was still holding my thigh, he placed his other hand on my buttock. I stopped breathing for a second. I could not understand if he was still on the same page, focusing on the exercise. I tried to look at Tony's face to see what was going on in his head, but when I turned, I realized that his face was inches away from mine. I could feel his breath on my lips, and I forgot what I wanted to do. He gave me a smirk and I pecked my lips. He then quickly stood straight and said that he was sorry. He said he shouldn't have done this, but he got carried away. He looked around and made sure that nobody saw what happened and left. I stood there all alone trying to process what just happened. That was something I wasn't expecting, but surprisingly, it didn't make me angry. I knew that the normal reaction to this would have been me fuming with anger and complaining about Tony, but I didn't. It has been 4 days now since our little peck. I decided against telling David about all this happening at the gym. I wanted to figure this out on my own. It had been 4 awkward days with Tony at the gym. I decided that both Tony and I had to sit together and address this. We can't go on feeling awkward around each other as we had to work together. I asked Tony if we could have a little talk at a nearby cafe after my session. He agreed to it and said he would meet me there 30 minutes after I left, during his break. I waited for him at the cafe, and when he arrived, he had a guilty look on his face. I got straight to the point and told him that he doesn't need to feel awkward or guilty around me. I mean, he was young, so it was natural for him to get carried away. It was not his fault, and that he could stop avoiding my gaze. I told him to forget about it, and let's just get back to being the way we were. He said that he was thankful to me for not complaining about him and being understanding. I told him it was all good, and we should just bury this in the past. After I sorted things with Tony, I felt pretty good about it and thought that things will get normal going forward. We had a normal week after my conversation with Tony. Things got a little out of hand at times when Tony's hands would be at places where they were not supposed to be. I tried to act as oblivious as possible to Tony's advances towards me. I assured myself that it was just a crush which would soon be over. I decided against telling David about this so that he had one less thing to worry about. I had confidence that I could deal with it myself. One evening, as David and I were having dinner, David told me that he was a little concerned about my gym sessions. My heart sank, and I thought that probably David had come to know about Tony. He told me that I was taking a long time in my workout sessions, which was not required for my age. He asked me not to stress myself out and do only the amount of workout I was comfortable with. He also told me that the gym I go to was pretty far from our house. I could probably switch to a gym which was much closer to where we lived to avoid long travel times. I instantly became defensive and answered that I loved my gym and would not want to change it. I was happy with the progress I was making and did not want to hamper it by changing the gym. David was taken aback by my defensiveness and said that he was just suggesting so that I can save some time, but he did mention that he understands my point completely and would let me make a decision on my own. I was feeling bad about lashing out at David for no reason. It has been 3 months since I started my gym sessions. I could see a lot of change in my mind and body. At the same time, I could not ignore the chemistry between me and Tony. Things had been escalating pretty quickly between me and Tony. There was undeniable chemistry between us. We would sneak kisses in between our workout sessions, and if we were lucky, we could even find an empty bathroom to make out. I felt so guilty for cheating on David that I barely spoke to him and tried to avoid spending time with him because I was scared that I might blurt something out which would destroy my marriage. David told me that my gym was keeping me too busy even to spend some time with him. I gave him a reassuring smile and said that I would try to make myself more available for him. I knew that I had to be very careful and not be caught by David. I need to make sure that he is happy so that I can continue my fairy tale romance with Tony. I did not feel any butterflies or sparks when David touched me or came close to me. I don't know if it was because I was too familiar with his touch or that I was enjoying Tony's touch way too much. As it was winter, David suggested that I start working out at home. I gave him very vague excuses, telling that we do not have all the necessary equipment, and I would not be that motivated at home to work out. David told me that equipment was not an issue, and that he could arrange everything that I wanted in the spare room. I could convert that room into a gym. I still looked very dissatisfied by his suggestions, so he told me that, why don't I check with my trainer if he could give private sessions at home? That was enough to bring an instant smile to my face. I told him that I would check with him and get back to David on this. David was pleased that at least I would consider his request and make an effort to make it work. After 2 days, I told him that Tony had agreed to take private gym sessions at home. I could not make it too obvious that Tony would readily agree to it. It was my first day of working out from home. I introduced David and Tony. I noticed David a little taken aback by the way Tony looked. After Tony left that day, he asked me what I thought about Tony. I was caught off guard and gave him a vague answer that he's a good guy and a nice trainer. I could feel the guilt rising higher that I might get caught. David told me that he has an upcoming deal for the client that was very important. He would be away most mornings working at this office. He said that he's relieved that Tony would be keeping me company, at least for a few hours, when he was away. The next day, Tony arrived as usual at 10 a.m. for our workout session. He noticed that David wasn't around and gave me a wicked smile. I knew what was going on in this head. As we started warming up, I noticed that Tony kept staring at me with a constant smile plastered on his face. I tried to ignore that and focused on my warm-up. As soon as I bent down, Tony came and stood behind me. He had both his hands on my buttocks and told me that I had the wrong posture. He also told me that he liked that I had a sexy figure. I could not help but blush at what he said. He knew that I was trying so hard to stop myself. He walked towards me and winked. We started kissing each other passionately and making out. Tony was fast enough to grab me and start undressing me when we both fell beside each other and started laughing. As I was catching my breath, I saw Tony sit on my body and start kissing me passionately. I could see that my body had a different mind of its own and started acting on its own accord and reciprocated the kiss. Tony's hands moved very swiftly and started taking off my pants. I got goosebumps and butterflies in my stomach. Just like that, we started making out on the hard floor. After about 20 minutes, we stopped because we were both tired and panting. I could see a sense of satisfaction on Tony's face, as if he knew that I had been resisting him for quite some time. There were still 30 minutes left for our gym session. Tony asked me naughtily if I wanted to go for another round. I could not help but laugh at his request. But deep down, I knew that David might be back from office anytime soon, and it was better to stop for today. I told Tony that I loved him and that we could continue where we started tomorrow. He agreed to it, smiled at me, and left. David came home in the afternoon after he finished his work. I had been thinking about everything that had happened today with Tony. I could not deny the fact that I enjoyed those moments with Tony. As I looked at David, there was an undeniable amount of guilt that I was feeling in my gut. He kept telling me about his work, but my mind was racing and I could not focus on anything that he was saying. He saw me spaced out and said that he did not want to bore me with his boring talks. I smiled at him but could not meet his eyes. He asked me how my workout was and I jumped. I quickly answered that everything was normal just like every other day. But deep down, I knew I was lying to him. The truth was my workouts had become a way for me to escape and spend more time with Tony, and the guilt of betraying David was eating away at me. The problem I had with David was not that I never loved him. I did, but the sex was meh. I never actually enjoyed having sex with David. Tony, on the other hand, was young, energetic, and to top it all, he also had a sexy body. I knew what I was doing right now was wrong on so many levels, but I felt that I deserved a good sex life. I know that I was being too selfish, but you gotta be selfish at times. I couldn't deny the fact that Tony fulfilled my desires in ways David never could. Despite the guilt, I couldn't ignore the exhilarating feeling of being desired and satisfied in ways I had always longed for. I decided to give my marriage one last chance tonight before I make my final decision. Maybe it was more to satisfy my guilt than it had to do with David or saving the marriage, now that I look back. At night, I wore the sexiest lingerie that I owned and made a romantic environment in our bedroom. I lit a few scented candles and placed them across her room. I got the bubble bath ready in our bathtub and played romantic music. I had asked David to get some chocolate so that I could prepare all this in the meantime. When David got home and came into our bedroom, he saw that the lights were off and the room was lit only by candles. I could see that expression on his face that melted my heart. It was so pure and full of love for me. He walked inside and took off the quilt to uncover me under it in my most sexy lingerie. He was amused by this surprise. We started kissing each other. I undressed him, and we made love to each other. After the lovemaking, David was tired and dozed off. I was lying there in bed, unable to sleep. Subconsciously, I was comparing what I felt with Tony and what I felt with David. There was an immense difference between how they both made me feel. With David, it all happened too quickly, and before I could even start enjoying it, it was over. But with Tony, it felt out of the world. He knew exactly what to do to pleasure me. After a lot of tossing and turning, I finally went to bed, still feeling unsatisfied and longing for the intense connection I had with Tony. The lingering thoughts of our passionate encounters kept me awake, leaving me yearning for more fulfillment in my current relationship with David. The next day, David told me that he would be spending most of his time at home and would only go out if necessary. I gave him the best smile I could to make him know that I was happy to have him at home and spend more time with him. There was no way I could let him know what was going on behind his back between me and Tony. When Tony came, he wasn't expecting David to be at home. I could see the unease in Tony's body language. I was warming up when I saw David walk up to Tony and talk to him. David was asking Tony about my progress. I was all tensed up about what they were talking about. Tony came back after 5 minutes and gave me a reassuring nod to calm down. I breathed a sigh of relief that David was still unaware of my affair with Tony. Tony and I enjoyed working out from home as we had no need to worry about someone walking in between or waiting for the bathrooms to be vacant to make out. Whenever David was out, we had lots of chances and lots of rooms to make out in. We could choose any room that we wished and make out till our heart's content. After a few days, David had to leave for an important meeting with the client very early in the morning. David left at 6 in the morning to make sure that he made it on time. As he left, he kissed me goodbye and said that he would be back by around 2 p.m. because the client that he was dealing with was very fussy and would take time to sign the contract. I wished him good luck and told him to call me once he was done so that we could go out in the evening to celebrate if he got the deal. He agreed to it and left. I knew that I wanted him to call me so that I knew exactly when he would be coming. I decided to call Tony and let him know about this. I made my preparations for my time with Tony and waited for him. The doorbell rang and I knew that it was Tony. I rushed and opened the door wearing something I knew he would like on me. His gaze was giving me butterflies in my stomach. I turned around to look at him and acted as if he was not affecting me at all. We were standing so close to each other that there was hardly any space between our bodies. Tony then placed one of his hands on my stomach and with the other. He turned my face towards his and started kissing me. He was such a good kisser that I could not resist myself and gave in. We continued kissing each other and slowly started undressing each other. Our hands were touching each other everywhere. Tony made me sit on one of the equipment and we started making love to each other right in the middle of the gym. Tony was very good and also fast at what he was doing. I was having the best sex of my life and completely forgot about David and my marriage. I could see a stark difference between last night's sex with David, which was not as great as just the foreplay with Tony. After a while, we both were tired and panting and decided to take a break. We were still on one of the equipment and laughed looking at each other because we both knew we had been craving for each other's body. It was not even noon and I knew that David wouldn't be back till 2 p.m. We still had 4 hours that we could utilize. I wanted to play hard to get, so I told Tony to put on his clothes. I took my clothes and started wearing them. I then walked towards the dining table and put some juice in 2 glasses for the both of us. I asked him to have some juice and I'll be right back. I went to my room and quickly started scanning through my lingerie to put on something sexy. I ran into the bathroom and started filling the bathtub with water and threw in a bath bomb. I took out the wine in 2 glasses and placed them beside the bathtub. I made sure everything was ready. I wore the lingerie and covered myself with a gown. I walked downstairs and saw Tony sitting at the table drinking the juice. I sat across from him and drank my juice. I spilled some juice on myself and made it look like an accident. I asked Tony if he could help me get it off my clothes. He started walking towards me knowing what this meant. He walked behind me to the bedroom. I made him follow me to the bathroom and slowly took off my gown. He could see that the bathtub was ready. There were wine glasses next to it. He came towards me and whispered in my ear that he loved the entire setup. I could not help but blush at his compliment. He started touching me at places that felt right. I loved how his touch made me feel. He started pressing my body towards his and slowly turned me around. We started kissing each other and walked towards the bathtub. He very swiftly pulled off my lingerie and pushed me into the bathtub. He followed me and we started making out, covering each other in foam. We took a break to enjoy the wine. Tony told me that he knew the moment I walked into the gym that we would be having a steamy session very soon. He said that he already sensed that I have been starving for sex for a very long time, which was not completely false. My sex life with David had been non-existent for such a long time that I could not remember when was the last time we had passionate sex. Tony was someone who brought my sensual and wild sex drive alive. After having sex with Tony, I could remember how enjoyable sex actually was. After some more making out in the bathtub, we decided to take a shower together. We had some more sex in the shower. After the shower, I gave Tony one of David's shorts and asked him to wait for me on the bed. It was still 12 p.m. and there were 2 hours more for David to come home. I got greedy and thought that we could do one more round before I let Tony go for today. When David would be back at home, I knew that it would be difficult for me to be alone with Tony again like this for an undetermined amount of time. So today was the only day where we could capitalize and make the most of it. I put on another pair of my lingerie, which barely covered anything, and walked towards the bed where Tony was lying down. He looked at me in awe and could not stop smiling. I liked that even at my age, I had it in me to attract such a young and hot guy. I came onto the bed, pushed him, and started kissing him. Within minutes, we were naked and were making out again. We were so into each other that it took us a while to realize that something fell, which made a huge noise. I turned my head to see where the noise came from and saw David standing at the entrance of our bedroom with flowers in his hands and a bottle of champagne which was now shattered on the floor. I froze for I don't know how long, as I could not understand how David could be here at this time. I did not even realize the state I was in. Tony tried to push me away, and that's when I came back to reality. I quickly got off Tony and started frantically searching for my clothes. Tony quickly grabbed the shorts and was about to wear them when David said that it was his shorts. Tony threw the shorts on the floor and tried to cover himself with his hands. I found the lingerie I was wearing but decided to cover myself with the quilt, as that would be more decent. Tony covered himself with his hands and started running outside. He probably grabbed his clothes and left. David was staring at me in disbelief, unable to even speak. I started blabbering that I was sorry and it was a mistake and that it would never happen again. He just had to trust me. It was Tony who manipulated me to have sex with him. I told David that I loved him, and our marriage and kids was what mattered to me the most in this world. David did not utter even a single word from his mouth, but I could see in his eyes that he was disgusted by what I had done. He went to his office and locked himself. I dressed myself and went to check if Tony had left. After making sure that there was no sign of Tony, I went to the office room and started knocking. I asked David if he could please open the door and let me explain. There was no response from David whatsoever. I started thinking about how to approach the situation so as to cause as little damage to my marriage as possible. Should I tell him that this was the first time this happened and it was all a mistake? As I was thinking, I realized that the bathroom is still a mess with everything that we did before David arrived. I thought of salvaging the situation by cleaning the bathroom before David could witness something much crueler. I ran to the bathroom and started draining the bathtub. I started cleaning the shower when I remembered the wine bottle and the wine glasses. Just as I was about to pick them up, I saw David enter the bedroom and look at the condition of the bathroom. He instantly understood what would have gone down in the bathroom. I know that after all this, there was no saving myself from David. I looked at David and panicked. He had blood in his eyes. This was the first time I saw David so angry that I was shivering with fear. He just kept staring at me without uttering a single word. It made me nervous, and I started blurting out that it was Tony who forced me to have sex with him. David screamed that what he saw did not look forceful. He told me that it looked like I was enjoying myself. I too lost my cool and yelled at him. I told him that yes, I was enjoying myself. Tony was able to satisfy me in a way that he was unable to. It was not my fault that I had been deprived of sex all these years that I had been with him. I could see the anger and hurt in David's eyes as my words sank in. He was taken aback by my confession and the harsh truth that I had just revealed. As the argument escalated, emotions ran high and tensions flared. I realized that our relationship had reached a breaking point, with underlying issues of intimacy and satisfaction coming to the surface. I started blaming him for everything that had been missing in my life. He told me that he did everything that he could to make me happy. He even was working at this age to make sure that we had a luxurious life. But deep down, I knew that it wasn't just about material possessions or external factors. It was about the emotional connection that had slowly eroded over time. Our communication had become strained, and we had stopped truly understanding each other's needs and desires. The absence of intimacy and satisfaction had led to all the trouble, and that was something that David had a hard time understating. I did not need his money. All I needed was him to satisfy me. I knew that all this talk hurt his ego, and it was getting very difficult for him to accept that he was not that great in bed. David started slamming everything in our bedroom. He was scaring me, so I stopped yelling at him. I thought that I had done enough to put my point across. He left the room after breaking everything he possibly could. It has been 2 days since David caught me cheating on him with Tony. He hasn't spoken to me ever since our argument, and I have no idea how to get him to talk to me. I tried to reach Tony, but he isn't picking up my calls either. Tony had been missing even from the gym, so I knew that I could not go to him. I don't know if after all this I would be able to save my relationship with David. I am now coming to my senses. I don't know what I should do and how I should behave in such a situation. David was my only hope to survive right now. If we get divorced, I would have to face public shame, and also my kids, whom I love dearly, would never even want to look at my face. I am lost, and the only thing I can do right now is plead to David to give me another chance to salvage the marriage, and not to mention the affair to the kids. If anyone has ever been in the same situation, please give me some ideas on how I can get myself out of this mess. Thank you for reading and not judging me. Hi guys, I'm currently trying to find the right words to quantify what this post is about. I don't know if I'm here to talk about how I cheated on my boyfriend and how I'm scared of him finding out, or how I'm afraid of getting dumped by my affair partner. I sound dumb and stupid right now, but please bear with me. I'm currently trying to evaluate the amount of tension and unnecessary anxiety I have brought upon myself just by a single mistake I made at a night out. Damn. When my parents used to tell me how parties and late nights out are just another ticket to misbehaving and losing your morals, I thought they were just trying to stop me from having fun and being free. Now, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place just because of a night out that led me to do something stupid. I cheated on my boyfriend with a handsome salesman at the retail store, and now I'm at the verge of being dumped by my boyfriend and the guy I cheated with. How ironic, right? My name is Eloise. I'm a 26-year-old baker, and I live in a town called Bingley, which is located in Bradford, England. The name of my boyfriend is Gregory, and we've been together for 2.5 years. We have known each other for 3 years now. Wow, I can't believe this is what it feels like to be the cheater behind the keyboard. Writing this has made me understand just how horrible being vulnerable is. Gregory and I live separately, but we hang out often. Just 2 months ago, he invited me out to a party, and we decided to stay till it was quite late. Gregory had to rush home because he had work the next day. I decided to go to the retail store and get myself something before going home. I can't deny the fact that I was already drunk even before I left the party. But maybe I was just tipsy, if I can still remember everything that occurred. When I got to the retail store, the salesman made me swoon. When I say he made me swoon, I mean it literally. It was a weird sensation for me because I've never been the type of person to be attracted to just anyone, especially when I'm just meeting the person for the first time. I don't know what happened to me that day because I was certainly not acting myself. The salesman introduced himself as Dave, and then he asked for my name. Our conversation just began from there, and then he told me his shift was over and decided to escort me home. I woke up in his house the next day, and I swear that I almost fainted when the realization of what I'd done hit me like a bucket of cold water. I cheated on my boyfriend with a salesman I'd just met. Dave is a very good-looking guy. I can't deny that fact. Maybe that's why I was swooned by him and decided to follow him home. I don't even have an explanation for what happened. I was meant to be escorted home, not turn out being the escort. Before I left his place that day, Dave made sure he asked for my phone number and saved his number on my phone. Gregory doesn't know what happened yet. I've managed to keep it a secret from him for the past 2 months. I know I'm shameless and selfish for doing that, but I really do not have an explanation. My survival instinct just and desire to keep my boyfriend just kicked in, and I desired to keep my mouth shut and keep everything from Gregory. At first, I wanted to pretend like it was just a one-time thing with Dave and that it happened as a result of my drinking. But it developed to become a friend's benefit thing. I can't even believe that I'm insinuating that I had a fling with someone while I was in a relationship with my boyfriend. Dave and I were constantly in contact. I think I'm infatuated by him and his good looks. He's good-looking, charming, and flirty. He's the definition of a bad idea, yet I found myself in a fling with him. I risked my relationship with my boyfriend by being with Dave, and I risked my fling with Dave by being with my boyfriend. Now I think Dave is about to dump me, and my boyfriend is on the verge of finding out the truth. I'm in a big mess, and the only person I can really blame is myself. To think I've been feeling like I could literally have my cake and eat it back is crazy. I thought I was being smooth and discreet. I was having fun by having a little bit of both worlds. But guess what? I'm about to lose both worlds and end up with nothing. I got a text from Dave yesterday saying that we needed to talk. That was the only contact of the text. Before, Dave would check up on me regularly and text me with sweet words. Yesterday, his words were very plain and weird. I could tell that there was something wrong. There's also every possibility that Dave plans on breaking up with me. We're not really dating, but we have a thing going on. If Dave breaks up with me, I'm literally done for. How will I cope with my boyfriend knowing he could find out any time? I know how smart Gregory is. It's only a matter of time before he tells me he's been aware of my cheating escapes. Speaking about Gregory, I've noticed a lot of changes in him. He's been suspicious of me, but he doesn't just know how to admit it without being wrong. I'm sure he's just waiting till he has enough evidence so I cannot deny it. Now Dave wants to break up with me? It's not possible and I cannot allow it. I don't want to sound violent and weird, but I have risked a lot to be with Dave. He asked us to meet tomorrow and I'm most definitely ready to meet him. I suspect that he'll try to break things off. Please advise me, guys. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'll do if Dave decides to break things off with me. Update. Hi guys, it's me again. I almost got dumped, but I made an escape. What can I say? Life seems to be turning against me with every single turn. Am I afraid? Of course I am. I don't know if I should watch my back or count my blessings because the discoveries I've made in the past 2 weeks are just shocking. I know a cheater like me doesn't really have the right to talk about loyalty and betrayal, but damn, I think I'll have to talk about it. So, I met up with Dave just like I said I would. Immediately, I walked into the cafe he requested us to meet at. I could just tell that there was trouble brewing in the air. He looked stiff and angry, and his facial expressions were just proof of what I'd been afraid of. I'd never seen him like that, and it bothered me a lot. I knew that my suspicions were about to become reality, and it took all the self-control I had in me for me not to run away. I just didn't want to hear what he had to say because I could just guess that none of it was going to be in my favor. Well, I was actually very right for feeling that way. Dave told me he needed a break and wanted to focus on his job. I had to ask him if he was crazy. Focus on his job? What job? Didn't he know he had a job before he took me to his house that day? I was very angry, and I did not hesitate to show him just how angry I was. Dave didn't wait to listen to me. He just left the cafe immediately and switched off his phone. I looked like a mad person that day because of the way I tried running after him. It was a crazy scenario, and I'm very ashamed of myself. But what could I do? I was practically shivering just from the possibility of losing Dave. I'm the type of person that gets extremely scared when I know there's nothing to fall back on. I think that's what they call daddy issues. I hate the feeling of vulnerability and being helpless. I also have the possibility of being left with no one. I know I'm a hypocrite for feeling this way just after I cheated on my boyfriend and had a full-blown going behind his back. I think I deserve the karma that's slowly making its way toward me. But, just like everyone else, I'm currently trying to fight my way out of it because I'm scared. When I got back home that day, I decided to give Dave the time he needed. I was also contemplating telling Gregory the truth. I wanted to let him know that I was cheating on him, but I just couldn't find the courage to do it. If I was asked who I'd choose between Gregory and Dave, I honestly know that Gregory is my choice. Dave is charming and all, but he's a flirt and a playboy who is never serious. The only reason I'm trying to hold on to Dave is because I definitely know that Gregory is going to dump me once he finds out that I cheated on him. I know that there is no possibility that he is going to forgive me, and that is why I am trying to make sure my relationship with Dave still stands. I know that what I am doing is called selfish, but I cannot bring myself to accept the fact that the person I put my relationship at risk for is planning to dump me. That is why I am trying my best to save at least one relationship. But it feels like the walls are caving in, and I know that the end of both relationships is here. Like I said earlier, I do not live with Gregory. We live separately, but we always meet up almost every day. I do stay with him during the weekend sometimes. I was not supposed to stay with him during this weekend, but I decided to give it a try since I am aware that a lot is going on. During those 2 days I stayed with him, I realized that I'm also on the verge of losing Gregory too. Gregory has become cold and aloof, and he was even showing obvious disgust for my presence at his house. One thing I don't understand is why Gregory and Dave seem to be acting weird at the same time. I am very suspicious of this, and I have even come to the conclusion that both of them are communicating. I don't think this is far-fetched, and I know that there is every possibility that they both came together and decided to teach me a lesson. Gregory even decided to stop calling me like he usually did. Forget you usually. Gregory has stopped calling me at all. Even the normal text messages are now forced as I am the one trying to make conversation. My 2.5-year relationship is slipping off my fingers and there is nothing I can do about it. It will really hurt me if I realize that both of them planned this together and figured out that I was dating both of them, so they decided to have a bro thing. Dave is aware that I am in a relationship, and he has been aware since the very second day we started this thing. I told him I had a boyfriend and that we were kind of serious, and he told me that he was not going to judge me for that. I believed him. I actually stupidly believed him, but now I am in a position to doubt every single thing he told me. The only reason I kept saying Dave even after I realized that I was literally cheating on my boyfriend is because of his charming ways. I don't want to sound vain and partial, but Dave has a way of acting all charming, nice, and welcoming, and that is the reason I fell right into his trap. If I find out that Dave has anything to do with Gregory's sudden distance, I don't trust what I will do to him. I swear that there are many instances when I wanted to tell Gregory the truth, but Dave has assured me that there was no need. I know that the relationship is between me and Gregory, and not Dave and Gregory. I should have listened to myself and not taken his advice, but it is always easier for cheaters to take the easy route out. And that is a mistake I made, and that is why I am regretting it right now. I'm going to keep you all updated on what happens next, and I honestly hope that it is something positive. I know that the truth is eventually going to come out, and all I'm trying to do is just try to make it wait longer. I'll update you all in a week or two. Bye. Update 2. I got dumped, guys. I assure you that you made no mistakes. You read that right. I knew that it was just a matter of time and this was going to happen eventually, but I did not know that it was going to be this soon. I've always imagined what it would be like for the truth to get out and for me to receive the heartbreak text or speech from Gregory. But nothing in my imagination ever prepared me for what actually happened. Gregory dumped me in such a way that it left me shook for days. The fact that he had been planning his big comeback and revenge is just the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. I know this might sound like an exaggeration, but I literally dined with my enemy. Gregory bought me a new dress and told me that he was going to take me out to dinner. Unknown to me that what Gregory actually wanted to do was break up with me. I can't even type this without taking a pause and taking a deep breath. Gregory practically embarrassed me in the worst way possible, and to think that I know that I deserve what happened to me is the most shameful, pitiful thing I've ever imagined. In this case, it was not imagination, it was actually reality, and I experienced it live and direct. Gregory sent me this beautiful dress, and I accepted it happily. It was a red dress, and it looked quite good on me. I even got my makeup done, because I was very happy that things were going to be better between me and Gregory. When I got to the restaurant, I realized that there were guests I didn't know were coming. Gregory invited his parents and siblings. I am not even joking when I say this. It was like I was at a family event. The only difference was that it was their family against just me. I came unprepared because Gregory didn't tell me that his family was going to be at the dinner. I was shocked to see them there, and I was practically defenseless. I thought it was going to be a normal dinner between couples, but I did not know that his family was invited. I'm sure you all know that it's a normal thing to prepare ahead of time before meeting your partner's family. It's mostly common among ladies when we rehearse the things to say and answers to the questions that we assume we would be asked. It's our way of getting ready and not being caught off guard. In my case, I wasn't just caught off guard. I was disrespected, embarrassed, insulted, and gaslighted. I think this is fair because this is exactly what I've been doing to Gregory. But to be honest, I never saw it coming. Even though I suspected that Gregory knew I was cheating on him and there was every possibility that he was going to have his revenge, never in a million years did I imagine that his own version of revenge was going to be exposing me in front of his own family members. When I got to the restaurant and sat down with his family, I could already sense that I'd been the topic of discussion before I came. His parents looked at me like I was feces under their feet. I swear that it took all the control in me not to stand up and run away. It was almost like I was sitting before them without clothes. I tried asking Gregory what was going on, but Gregory pretended like you did not even know me. He just told his family how he discovered that I'd been cheating on him. The Gregory I saw that they looked like a beast. I could tell that I had hurt him a lot and he was very disappointed in me. I was also very disappointed in myself because I made choices that were very poor. The worst part was that I kept making those wrong choices continuously, even though I was aware that I was only ruining the beautiful thing I had. I'm certain that one of the reasons Gregory made sure his family was present before he broke up with me is because of his mother's fondness for me. His mother and I have always been close, and she's always been in support of our relationship. Even before Gregory exposed me in front of his family, I've always been disgusted with the choices I made, even though I couldn't muster up the courage to correct all the mistakes I've made. I chose to take the easy route because I was a coward who was afraid of facing the consequences of her actions. But the fact that a woman who always loved to see me and smiled when she saw me, looked at me with a huge amount of disgust and hatred, made me regret everything all over again. Gregory's mother, who was always fond of me, looks like she regretted all the moments of kindness she showed me. I was deeply disturbed, embarrassed, and disappointed. Gregory told me that our relationship was over and that he gave me 2 months to refund all the money, clothing, jewelry, and everything he's ever spent on me. Yes, you all read that right. I am not even joking at all. I left the restaurant thinking about where I would get the money to pay him back. Where would I even start from? How did he expect me to refund 2.5 years worth of gifts? Even though I'm still very much upset with myself, I cannot deny the fact that I have also spent a lot of money on Gregory. I mean, there was a point in my life where I actually thought that I would get married to him. That just goes to show how much we invested in each other before I went on and messed everything up. This might not be really relevant in this journey, but I will still say this just for reference sake. I am not a lazy woman, and I work for my money. I have never been dependent on Gregory's money or gifts. I am even the one who rejected his offer for me to move into his house. I am independent, and I have been so almost all my life. I work as a baker, and I work my ass off to earn what I eat. I think it's a little too cruel and weird of him to ask me for 2.5 years worth of gifts. I could also ask him for the same things because I have also spent money on him. The next day after you broke up with me, I decided to go over to his house so we could talk. I knew I had messed up and I knew the relationship was broken beyond repair. I didn't go to his house to ask for a second chance. I wanted to ask for his forgiveness because even before we started dating, we were good friends. We started off as good friends, and I don't want us to end up as people who stop talking to each other. I knew that it was going to be hard for him to forgive me and forget about everything, but I just wanted to try my luck to see if he could forgive me. But when I got to his house, what I saw there really shocked me. My best friend was at his house and they were making out before I stepped inside. Can you imagine the level of betrayal I felt? She was someone who was very aware of the dynamic of the relationship I had with Gregory and Dave. She was my very close best friend, and I told her everything about the relationship. Even when I first cheated on Gregory and was very scared, she was the first person I spoke to. I felt very guilty, and I needed someone to talk to, so I spoke to her because I thought I could trust her. But at the end of the day, I realized that she was just a green snake in the green grass. She literally listened to me talk about my problems only for her to go behind my back and date my boyfriend. I realized that there was every possibility that she had been visiting Gregory even while we were still together. It dawned on me that she must have been the one to have told Gregory the truth. I know that after what I did to Gregory, I do not deserve any form of loyalty from anyone. But it still hurts me to see my own best friend with my ex-boyfriend. What even hurt me the most is the fact that she listened to me when I told her how I felt. The fact that she encouraged me not to tell him the truth is even more alarming. I'm even the bigger fool for listening to her advice and not doing what was right. She had her own bigger intentions, and I was not smart enough to realize it at the time. When I walked towards them and made my presence known, I did not see any form of guilt in her eyes. She even had the look of victory. It's the kind of look that told me she had been planning everything for a long time. A part of me wanted to be angry and even physically hurt her, but I knew that it was just my karma that got me hard. If I didn't cheat, she would have never had the opportunity to even dream of entering that living room. But I made the mistake of being unfaithful, which meant that I opened doors for anyone to enter into the relationship. Gregory practically sent me out of the house immediately he sighted me. He didn't even wait to listen to the things I had to say to him. I came to make peace with him, but it was obvious that he was not even interested in listening to me. I honestly tried my best, but all efforts proved to be in vain. I had no choice than to go back home. I knew that there was no use trying to make peace with someone that despised me. But I am smart enough to know that I deserve everything Gregory did to me, except the part where he asked me to refund his money. I am not going to refund anything because I never asked him for gifts. Everything he gave to me, he gave out of his own free will, and I did not force him. Even the dress he bought me for dinner was his own decision. I've also spent substantial money on him, and I don't think I plan on getting it back. So even though that chapter is painfully closed, I made it clear to him that I do not plan on refunding any money to him. Now guys, you might think that my misery is over, but it literally started from there. I got a text from Dave yesterday stating that he wanted to see me urgently. Dave and I have not been in contact since that day when he told me he needed a break. I tried reaching out to him, but it appeared like he blocked my number. Now that I got that text from him, I know that it can only mean that our relationship might be coming to an end. We all know that when your partner asks for a break, 90% of those relationships never come back the same. I don't even really think I'm interested in a relationship with Dave. I'm just not ready to buy the idea that I will lose both relationships at once. It's a truth I am not yet ready to accept, and that is why I am ready to do my best to save my relationship with Dave. The thought of how much being with Dave cost me in my long relationship is making me scared of losing my relationship with Dave. I'll feel even worse if I end up losing the relationship I have with Dave. It will mean that I put everything at stake just so I could end up with absolutely nothing. That is why I am literally here praying and hoping that Dave will only bring good news when we meet. I just hope that my relationship with Dave ends up being among the 10% of relationships that survive breaks. All I can do is hope. I'll be making an update to this post as soon as I can. I have accepted to meet them in the next 2 days. Whatever happens, I'll be sure to let you all know. Till next time. Update 3. I got dumped again. Yes, you read that right. I got dumped for the second time. I can't believe I'm here again with the same unfortunate experience. When I told you that I was hoping and praying that my relationship with Dave was safe, I was not joking at all. But it seems like karma really decided to make sure it's finished its work. I don't even know where to begin this similar breakup journey from. Dave actually broke up with me. Even after all the hopes I had, I was crushed yet again. If this isn't my story and it didn't happen to me, I'd not believe this even if I read it somewhere else. How can I get dumped twice back to back? It happened in literally the same period of time. I didn't even have the time to gather my thoughts and heal from the breakup with Gregory. Dave decided he couldn't wait any longer, and so he broke up with me. I guess 2 times the charm, right? Wow. I cannot believe that this is me. Dave invited me to his house just so he could break up with me. That day I got dressed and even took extra time to bake a cake for him. His birthday was a week before, but I couldn't bake him a cake because we stopped communicating. I decided to use that opportunity and get him a cake. But trust me, nothing prepared me for the aftermath at all. I know some of you might say I am shameless for baking a cake for Dave just after I broke up with Gregory. Well, there's nothing I can say to that. I don't think it's right for me to keep dwelling on the past. Gregory literally moved on with my best friend. I knew that there was no chance of us getting back together. In my stupid mind, I could try to save the going I had with Dave. I thought it was the right thing to do. I didn't want to be left with another reason to regret my actions again. So I decided to take enough stuff to stay over at Dave's place for 3 days. I thought it would be a little way for us to spend time together after being away because of the break. Yes, Guy, I was that positive and hopeful that I'd get back with Dave. Unfortunately for me, that was not the case at all. I would have really appreciated it if Dave had just made his intentions known to me from the start. Instead, he decided to play dumb and go along with all the preparations I'd made. This even went as far as welcoming me in the sweetest way possible. He was so happy to receive the birthday cake, and he devoured it like it was a freaking buffet. Believe me when I say he devoured it, because he really devoured it. I was very happy to see how excited he was, because I believed that that was a sign that we were going to get back together. He made it seem like he was back to his normal charming self with the way he flirted and joked. I actually believed everything and did not know that it was all just a facade. The first day and slept over, I forgot all about the pending problems and just tried my best to have fun. We were talking and just spending time together like normal couples did, even though I knew we were not a normal couple. The fact that I forgot all about everything is just a testament to how well he played me and made me believe that everything was fine. Even as I'm writing this now, I don't understand why he had to fake it when all he wanted to do was break up with me at the end of the day. It does not make sense at all, and that just goes to show how unserious he is. I know that I am literally at fault for everything, but Dave and Gregory seem to have been the perfect pair to make my life a living hell. It was practically hard for me to understand everything, but I was able to get to the root of it at the end of the day. Before I tell you all how I got the piece of the puzzle together, I'll let you know how Dave broke up with me. On the 3rd day I spent in his house, Dave decided to have a serious conversation with me. He told me he was aware that I was no longer together with my boyfriend. Imagine the level of shock I felt when he told me that. It was hard for me to understand how Dave found out Gregory and I broke up. I did not have a public relationship with Gregory, so it's not like we posted our breakup online. Hey! Up until that moment, I didn't even know that Dave knew Gregory's name. I've never mentioned Gregory's name to Dave. I just told him that I had a boyfriend. and that was it. I never saw the need to tell him what my boyfriend's name was. But on that particular day, Gregory told me he knew I broke up with this, and he called his name. I was very surprised because I did not expect Dave to be acquainted with Gregory. I stood up and demanded answers from Dave immediately. I had to know what was going on because it felt like I was being played right before my eyes. Even though I've been dating two guys, I never intentionally tried to make it a game. I told Dave I had a boyfriend before we started having a fling, so there was no way it made sense that he'd go behind my back and try to plan me with my real boyfriend. The only person that had the right to make that more was Gregory because he was the only one I really kept in the dark. But the discovery I made that day was very different from what I imagined. Dave told me that things were over between us. He said he was no longer interested in the relationship and wanted us to break up. I was shocked to say the least. I was so angry that I had to ask him why he only told me this when it was already too late. I didn't understand why he made me spend 2 days at his place when all he wanted to do was break up with me. Dave was not remorseful at all, and he made it clear that he did not give a damn. I was practically furious, and the proof of how angry I'd been is currently on Dave's face because I scratched the hell out of his face. I had long nails fixed, and I made sure that I pierced it into his skin. I am not a violent person, but I had no self-control that day. The fact that Dave had the audacity to think he could play me and then try and be nonchalant about it took me off the edge. Dave did not try to be defenseless when I came at him. He also tried to push me and fight back. But trust me, a woman always has pepper spray in her bag. I ran to the room and grabbed the pepper spray I always kept in my purse. I sprayed his eyes till I was practically rolling on the floor. That gave me enough time to pack my belongings and vacate his house. I didn't have much to park because I only brought in a duffel bag. I spent hours shaking on my couch when I got back to my house that day. The realization of what had happened had me shaking. I was so scared, betrayed, and angry at the same time that I didn't even know what to do with myself. It took a lot of self-control and anger management for me not to practically ruin my living room. I was embarrassed and disappointed in myself, but I was also very shaken with the fact that I got dumped twice barely in a week's time. I know that I had it coming and the shooting always had its repercussions, but I never expected my boyfriend and my affair partner to have come together to teach me a lesson. This is just my conclusion of what happened because I still don't have the full story. Dave refused to tell me what he knew, and Gregory is ignoring me. Even though I'm not aware of the full truth, I know that Gregory and Dave definitely came together to plan what to do to me. I got dumped twice, and it's still something that shocks me. Apart from the fact that I was dumped by my affair partner and boyfriend, I'm still trying to get over the fact that my best friend went ahead to sleep with my ex-boyfriend. If this is really the karma I deserve for cheating, I'm very certain that I got it hard. But I still accept that none of this embarrassment and disrespect would have happened if I never cheated. Even though everything that has happened to me is messed up, I can't deny that I have a hand in it. Nobody cares and life goes on. Only me is left with my repercussions. Lesson learned the hard way.